Hi there, I'm Henrik Mortensson and this is the Sources of Inspiration videocast. This time I'd like to start by saying thanks to Julie Bell and Jamie Chase, two of my favorite artists and great sources of inspiration. They both gave me permission to use their pictures for this video, for which I am very grateful. About a year ago, I saw Julie Bell's painting Sanctuary. Now, Julie Bell is one of the best fantasy artists in the world. She and her husband, Boris Vallejo, have been among my favorite painters for decades. But I developed a new, more intense interest when I got into photography. Now, in this picture, I love the triangle composition, I love the light and shadows and the contrast between the foreground and the background. I find it impressive how the woman and the jaguar blend into the environment perfectly. This is difficult to do in a painting, and if you do photo composites like me, it can be really difficult, a very big challenge. And the thing is, painters know more about how to make things blend than most people who work with photo composites do. The photo composite artists use simplified techniques to make things blend. But artists, they are more careful and they do it a bit better. So studying art like this is it's not just that I like the art, it's also that I can learn a lot from it. Beyond the technique, the composition and the light, I like the feeling of tranquility and trust. If I was sitting that close to a jaguar, I'd be pretty nervous, but the woman in the picture clearly is not. Expressing emotion in human figures, that's also something that is difficult to do. I work with models and we struggle a lot to get the right expression, the right emotion, feeling. And we're having fun while we do it, but it's really hard to do. How a painter can do it and often do it so much better, that's something I don't think I'll never really understand how it's done, but I can admire it and I can learn from it. So there is no way I can create a picture that comes close to this one. But on the other hand, I knew I wouldn't let that stop me from trying. I mean, trying and learning. The road is more important than the goal. That's the key to the fun of it. What I came up with is this picture, Jaguar Queen. I worked with the model Eliza Sika for this one. So it's inspired by Julie Bell's Sanctuary, but I believe it's different enough to stand on its own. Now, when I did this, I didn't just study Julie's Sanctuary. I looked at similar pictures with the same theme by many other artists. But at the core of the inspiration was all the time was Sanctuary all the time. And I hope I managed to capture at least something of the atmosphere of Julie's painting. I think Eliza did a great job as a model in this picture. Now, eventually, I'll do more woman with large cat pictures. I've already storyboarded a couple, and when the pandemic dies down and I get going with photo shoots again, then I think I'll need to do at least a couple more. But I won't show the storyboards until I have finished the pictures, the photo composite versions of the pictures. Now, the other picture I would like to show you is by Jamie Chase. It's a picture in the Lost World, or more specifically, the cave woman genre of paintings. That's a rather specialized genre, and Jamie Chase is a master. He's an outstanding painter and comic book illustrator. Now, James' paintings, they look simple in the sense that there is nothing unnecessary in them. He strips scenes down to their essence and no further. Now, I tend to overcomplicate my pictures in attempts to create realistic looking scenes, but that can easily turn into a trap where pictures end up as kind of murky messes with no clear separation between points of interest and everything else. So what initially drew me to Jamie's paintings is that he doesn't do that. Look at a small thumbnail of one of his paintings and you can see exactly what the scene is. I wanted to learn how to simplify my own pictures a bit, how to make the important bits stand out and how to let everything else fade into the background. Now, if you look at this picture, you can see how Jamie's pictures are dynamic with natural movement and often frantic action. Making my pictures more dynamic is something I struggle with. Now, it's partially due to limitations of my studio and equipment, and partially it's about security concerns for models. But a lot of the limitations is also inside my head. By studying and learning from Jamie's pictures, I hope to overcome the in my head part, and I think if I can do that, I have a pretty good start. Limitations of locale and equipment can be dealt with a piece at a time. The safety of models, well, that's something I'll never compromise on. But everything else I can build up and fix and do better. So I decided to use what I learned from Jamie's pictures and apply it to my own storyboards. And this, Terror from the Sky, is an example of what I did. The focus is on a few foreground elements. I have left most of the environment out. I use a very limited palette of colors. And the background is highly simplified. I mean, it's just an orange smear. So now if you compare side by side with Jamie's picture, his picture is a lot more dynamic with a sense of movement diagonally out of the frame. Now this is something I need to get better at. I have limitations because, as I mentioned, the studio and photo equipment I'm using, but I will figure something out eventually. Now look at the light and shadows on the feet and ground in Jamie's picture. The dark shadow on one side of the foot on top of the dark shadow on the ground, coupled with the bright light on the other side of the foot and the ground below it, makes it look like the foot has firm contact with the ground. Now, I have used the same technique, but not as well as Jamie did it. Now, if you look back at Julie Bell's picture, Sanctuary, you'll see that she also blends perfectly and she uses similar techniques. Not being as good as Jamie and Julie means that even though I'm fairly happy with this storyboard, there is lots of room for improvement. And when there is lots of room for improvement, there is lots of room for fun. I didn't make just this picture in this style. I made lots of experiments to figure out what I can do with an orange background and just a few foreground experiments. Not every experiment resulted in a great picture, but every one of them, even the failed pictures, were great learning experiences. Learning from failure is, I think, necessary in order to learn how to succeed. Now, of course, I still don't know how well I can transfer these ideas to photography with a live model. But as I mentioned, that is part of the fun. I'll continue in 2021 and do my best to find models who want to work with me to experiment and perhaps create great creative pictures. Now that's all for this episode. and I hope you find your own inspiration and do your own experiments. Okay, bye bye.